Welcome, my name is Dale Christy. I'm the mayor of the city of Grand Rapids.
And I'm Tom Pagel. I'm the city administrator for the city of Grand Rapids.
We're here today because on the November 8th ballot, those of you who live in the city of Grand Rapids will have on your ballot the option of voting for or against a local sales tax. The sales tax would go to repair the IRA Civic Center. And we're here today to kind of talk to you about how we got to this point and what the options are for the city and for the taxpayers. Tom, can you tell us a little bit about how we got to this point?
Yes, absolutely. So if you recall, the Civic Center, the west venue, which is what we're focused on, was originally built in 1962. It was built by a group of volunteers, really the IRA committee, Itasca Recreational Association. In 1968, it was given to the city of Grand Rapids to own and maintain into the future. So we are dealing with infrastructure that is really 60 years old. And if you recall, what we have in there for a roof structure is what's called a bowstring truss. And it's a wooden truss. When it was originally designed, it was designed to carry 20 pounds per square foot. Current building code is 46 pounds per square foot. And so over time, it's deteriorated, and we've actually had 2 structural failures. As a result, we had a structural engineer model it, look at it, and what the engineer has determined is that it is a dangerous situation. And as a result, until we could get all of our funding in place, we shovel the roof every time it snows. So when you look at this current project, in addition to the roof, we're really fixing what needs to be fixed, old infrastructure. So we're also going to be replacing the refrigeration that makes the ice, and the coils underneath the concrete that cool the concrete and make the ice. That was originally built in 1968, and it uses a chemical called R22. R22 is no longer produced because it destroys the ozone. So in addition to those 2 things, we're also going to be upgrading the HVAC systems. They're dating back to 1980 and are failing. And upgrading all of the electrical, which was originally constructed in 1962 and 1968. So strictly fixing what needs to be fixed. It's not an extravagant project, but those basic needs add up quickly in cost.
And it's not surprising that a building that old needs to be fixed occasionally. If this was somebody's house, you would have to work on your roof after 60 years or before that, and work on a lot of other things. So this is fixing a city building that already is owned by the city and needs to be fixed. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of the ADA accessible issues that go along with fixing the building at this time?
Absolutely. So whenever you're upgrading a building, you have to address ADA accessibility. And thankfully, we are doing that with this project. We're going to be adding an elevator so that people who move differently, who have challenges in going up and down stairs, will be able to use an elevator to go from the lower level, from the main entrance, to the upper lobby in the Civic Center. If you think about it right now, if someone's in a wheelchair and they want to get from the main lobby on the east side of the building and they want to get to the upper lobby, they have to go outside, especially in the winter, going up a steep sidewalk to get to that upper lobby. And so this is a great improvement for people who have disabilities. In addition to that, we are going to be creating inclusive areas within the West venue so that they can be within the crowd and feel the excitement of hockey games going on and other events that occur at the Civic Center.
And currently somebody who's in a wheelchair can't sit out in the Civic Center to actually be part of the crowd. There is no natural spot for somebody who has that disability.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Yep.
So the project is fixing some things that need to be fixed. Can you talk a little bit about the cost of what needs to be fixed and some of the funding sources that are in place?
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, so total project cost is about $15.5 million. We have worked really hard to secure other funding. We did secure $5 million from the state of Minnesota through bonding. We have two grant requests out to two different funding agencies right now for an additional $2 million. So what that ends up leaving the city and the local community to cover is about $8.5 million. So about 60% of the project cost. But we've worked really hard to lower the city's responsibility by working with the state and working with granting agencies.
So we've also cut some things out of the project that would have been part of it if inflation hadn't taken place.
Yeah. You're correct, yeah. Inflation really did, I think personally we all have experienced inflation in the last 3 years. But yeah, we were hoping to be able to make parking lot upgrades and improvements. That parking lot was last worked on in 1995, so again, approaching 30 years old. Sidewalks need to be replaced, curb needs to be patched, and a new bituminous overlay. But we ended up cutting that out of the project. That was about $1.5 million in order to make the budget work, and we'll have to address those items later in the future.
So this is truly is just fixing what has to be fixed at this point.
Correct.
Yeah.
No expansion of the footprint. Yeah.
Yeah. So the city and a subcommittee have looked at different ways of how to pay for this. Can you tell us a little bit more about what we've looked into and what the options we're looking at giving the citizens?
You bet, yeah. So as you mentioned, Mayor, we did have a subcommittee. It consisted of a wide range of community folks. Some folks from the school district. We had small business owners. We had future legislators. Representative Pagel was on that committee before he became a representative. So a nice range of community members. And we explored various funding mechanisms. One was looking at a food and beverage tax. And what we determined was it wouldn't generate enough revenue to pay debt service. We looked at a lodging tax, but right now the lodging tax is being utilized by Visit Grand Rapids for important marketing to keep people coming here and spending their monies. We looked at property taxes, and we looked at sales tax. And what that committee recommended unanimously was that the city should pursue a local option sales tax. And so that's what we did. We went down to the legislature. We got pre-approval. The legislature felt that this is a regional facility, and it's regional because over 60% of the users are not residents of the city, and about 40% are residents of the city. And so they gave us that approval contingent upon our voters approving the use of local sales tax for the project.
So currently the number of people who use the facility are about 40% of city residents, yet they're paying 100% of improvements in the building if we went to a property tax option.
Yeah, absolutely correct, yes. Yeah. And the University of Minnesota did a study for us. They determined that about 57% of the revenue generated by a local sales tax would be from non-residents. So it's interesting that the two pieces of data correlate each other in that 60% of the users are non-residents. About 60%, if you round it up, would be paying for the improvements. So to staff, it seems like a fair funding mechanism.
And I know that the council felt it was important to at least give the voters that option, which way they wanted to go with it. One of the things that we've heard with the sales tax, people who've asked me is, well, once you're done paying for this, you'll just use it for something else. So we're putting in place a permanent mechanism for more government collecting taxes, more of our taxes. Could you talk about that question that I get often?
Yeah, you bet. So by law, by state law, this is a temporary tax. It's a temporary sales tax. We can only collect 5.985 million. When we collect that, the tax ends. We're anticipating that the length of time for this 0.5% tax would be less than 6 years. And so it's very temporary. It's temporary by law. And if the community wanted to continue the tax, A, they would have to come up with another regional project that serves the region. B, they would have to go back down to the state to get authorization to hold a referendum. And C, a referendum would have to pass. So this will end. This is temporary. If the voters decide not to use the local sales tax and we end up using property tax, that property tax is going to go for 20 years. And when I was doing a presentation, a member of the audience pointed out, I won't be here 20 years from now, but they pointed out the likelihood of the city at that time reducing the levy by about $750,000 a year would be slim to none. So the tax, from a property tax perspective, likely would never go away.
And so the sales tax has a definite end, either 6 years or when that amount of money is collected. I've had people tell me, well, if you guys impose a sales tax, I'm going to go shop somewhere else. I'm going to go shopping in Hibbing, Bemidji, Brainerd. What can you tell us more about why that really isn't saving them any money?
Right. I think those communities would appreciate if they did, because they would be paying local sales tax in those communities. Grand Rapids and Itasca County are one of the last communities and cities in the state to utilize a local sales tax. If you go to Hibbing, you go to Virginia, you go to Duluth, Bemidji, Brainerd, they all have local sales tax. The Twin Cities has local sales tax. Perham, Minnesota has sales tax. Hermantown has sales tax, local sales tax. So what they have found is they have good regional projects, and it's a fair way for those communities to pay for those projects.
So residents of Grand Rapids are helping those communities pay for their projects. This wouldn't be unusual for us to ask residents of other communities to help pay for our project.
Correct.
Yeah. One of the things that I've been asked is, for businesses, would a sales tax actually cost more for a resident or a business than a sales tax? And I know that one of the things we looked at was one of our biggest property taxpayers, Blandin Paper Company. I believe the numbers are they would pay between $900,000 and $1 million less with a sales tax versus a property tax, and that's probably proportionally similar to other businesses in town and residents in town.
Yep, absolutely. Good example. Essentially, through a local sales and use tax, Blandin Paper Company would pay about 10% of what they would pay in property tax for this improvement. And when you look at the estimated market value of the median household in town, in checking with the assessors last week, they're at $195,000 in value now. So, the typical average home is about $195,000 in town. What that correlates to is about an additional $150 a year in property tax if they were to pay for it through property tax.
And the sales tax is a half percent tax.
Yeah, 0.5% only on taxable items. So they won't be paying a local option sales tax on clothing. They won't be paying it on on unprepared food. So you go to the grocery store and most of the food you buy at a grocery store is not taxed. They would not be paying a local sales tax on gas. They would not be paying a local sales tax on the purchase of vehicles, cars and trucks. So very limited on what they pay it on, and typically it's paid on leisure products.
Eating out, going to a hotel, etc.
Yeah, buying booze, buying beer,
Yep.
hotels,
Anything else that I should have asked you here that you'd like to mention?
Well, I think it's important to mention that the University of Minnesota did an economic impact study on the Civic Center, and in doing that, what they determined is it has about a $3.4 million economic impact to the positive economic impact to the community, and it supports about 48 full and part-time jobs in the community. When you think about wintertime in Grand Rapids and being a tourism town, we really want to continue to sustain the hotels we have and the hotels that are growing and adding on, along with all of our restaurants. And one of the most supportive things in keeping these hotels and restaurants alive in the winter are all of the hockey tournaments that Graha puts on. They put on over 12 weekends of hockey tournaments a year in this community. Without them, we certainly wouldn't have the amenities that we have today.
There's other winter activities, but if it doesn't snow, the snowmobilers can't show up, and if it's too cold, other activities tend not to show up, but hockey tends to go on. And the building is more than just a hockey arena.
It
I
is.
should mention that, yeah.
Absolutely. You know, it's an emergency evacuation shelter for the high school. It also is an emergency facility for the county emergency plan. So let's say we had a major storm like we did several Julys ago. You know, people can go there, can shelter there, you know, and they'd be taken care of there. It's a great facility for that. In addition, we have trade shows, we have Children's First, we have Kindergarten Roundup. The Rife Center has been holding concerts there in the summer now. So it truly is a multi-use facility. It's a great public asset, serves as a polling place. So yeah, it is a great facility for the public.
So the repair of the building will be starting in April, this next April, to be finished by the end of November. So the bids have been let out. All the bids are done, and people are even starting to bring in the materials that they're going to be using for replacing the building, for fixing the building. So now the question is, what's the best way to pay for it? And we're leaving that to the citizens to decide. So on November 8th, or if you vote beforehand, that item will be on the ballot. Do you support a 0.5% sales tax, time specific, would end at the end of 6 years, or when all the money is collected, whichever comes first, or would you prefer to pay for it with property taxes? And so we want to make sure you're aware of what the project is, what's the history of it, and what the economic benefit of the Civic Center is to Grand Rapids. So
one more quick note. Our question on the ballot is on the back side of the ballot.
Yep.
So the county's is on the front, they also have a question, but ours is on the back with all of the judicial candidates. So
thank you for listening, and thanks for being here, Tom.
thank you for having me.
Yep. Thank you.